The rain hammered against the cobblestones like accusations, each drop echoing the words Constance had just screamed. Adelaide Carter stood at the iron gates of what had once been her home, 6 months pregnant, her suitcase abandoned on the wet pavement beside her. No money. No phone. Just the thin sweater clinging to her swollen belly and the taste of betrayal sharp on her tongue. Through the downpour, headlights cut the darkness. A black sedan slowed, then stopped. The window rolled down, and Liam Sterling, CEO of Sterling Dynamics, froze at the sight of her tears mixing with rain. His eyes traveled to her belly, lingered there for a heartbeat that stretched into eternity. He pushed open the door from inside. "Get in," he said, his voice rough with something unspoken. Adelaide hesitated, her hand protective over her unborn child. Then she stepped into the warmth of the car. Neither of them knew yet that the baby growing inside her had already tied their fates together from a night neither could forget. The evening had started with Constance's perfectly manicured nails tapping against the mahogany dining table, each strike deliberate as a judge's gavel. She'd spread the doctored headlines across the surface like evidence in a trial Adelaide hadn't known she was facing. Pregnant and unmarried, Constance announced to Henry Carter, Adelaide's father, who sat slumped in his wheelchair, his heart medication within arm's reach. "The shame you've brought to this family is unforgivable." The words were calculated, each syllable designed to wound. Constance had spent months orchestrating this moment, planting seeds of doubt in Henry's weakened mind, manipulating his fears about family reputation and legacy. Adelaide's voice remained steady despite the tremor in her hands. "Those articles are fabricated, Dad. You know me better than this." But Henry's silence spoke volumes. His recent heart surgery had left him fragile, dependent on Constance's care, afraid that any conflict might trigger another cardiac episode. The fear in his eyes wasn't just about his health. It was about losing the woman who had convinced him she was his salvation after Adelaide's mother had died. Constance seized his silence like a weapon. "Your father and I have discussed this extensively." Constance lied smoothly, her voice dripping with false concern. "For the sake of the family's standing, for your father's health, you need to leave. Tonight." The ultimatum hung in the air like a death sentence. Adelaide looked to her father one last time, searching for any sign of the man who had once pushed her on swings and read her bedtime stories. But Henry Carter had become a stranger, imprisoned by his own weakness and Constance's manipulation. Adelaide gathered what dignity remained and walked to her room. Her hands shook as she packed only essentials into a single suitcase. Baby clothes she'd hidden from Constance's prying eyes, the ultrasound photo showing tiny fingers and toes. Her mother's necklace, the only inheritance Constance hadn't managed to claim. The design portfolio that represented her dreams, her scholarship work at the university, the future she'd mapped out before everything had gone wrong. Each item she packed felt like accepting defeat, but the life growing inside her demanded she survive this humiliation. The rain had started as she descended the stairs for the last time. Constance stood at the door like a sentinel, her expression triumphant. "Don't attempt to contact your father. It would only upset him. And his heart can't take the stress." The threat was clear beneath the veneer of concern. Adelaide passed her stepmother without a word, pulling her suitcase through the doorway into the storm. Behind her, she heard the locks turn with finality. The sound of the iron gates clanging shut would haunt her dreams for months to come. Now, sitting in Liam Sterling's car, Adelaide shivered despite the heated seats. Water dripped from her hair onto the leather upholstery, but Liam didn't seem to notice or care. His hands gripped the steering wheel with white knuckles as he navigated through the storm. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was full of unasked questions and memories neither had expected to confront tonight. "Who's the father?" Liam finally asked, his voice carefully neutral, though something flickered in his jaw. Adelaide turned to look out the window, watching the city lights blur through rain and tears. "It doesn't matter," she whispered. "He doesn't know." The lie came easily, because it was partially true. Liam Sterling, the powerful CEO whose car she now sat in, had no idea that their one night together in New York 10 months ago had resulted in the life she now carried. Liam's phone buzzed. Serena Collins, his head of public relations, her voice tight with concern. "There's something on the gossip forums. A photo of you picking up a pregnant woman. It's already gaining traction." He ended the call without responding. His decision made. "You're coming to my place," he said. Not a question, but a statement. "You need somewhere safe and dry." Adelaide wanted to protest, but another cramp rippled across her belly. Mild but concerning. She nodded, too exhausted to fight. The penthouse stretched across the top floor of Sterling Tower, all glass and steel and cold perfection. Dante Flynn, Liam's security chief, met them at the private elevator, his expression professionally neutral, as he took Adelaide's suitcase. The space felt like a museum, too pristine for human habitation, until Liam disappeared into what must be the kitchen. The sound of pots clanging and water running broke the sterile atmosphere. He returned with chicken soup, the bowl warm in his hands, steam rising like hope. "My mother's recipe," he said quietly, setting it before her. From before she died. The admission hung between them. Unexpected vulnerability from a man known for his impenetrable business facade. Adelaide took a sip, and the warmth spread through her chest, thawing something frozen since Constance's accusations. Dr. Helen Moore arrived within the hour, her medical bag efficient and her manner kind. "The baby's fine," she assured them after a thorough examination. "But you need rest and stability. Stress at this stage can be dangerous." Her eyes moved between Adelaide and Liam with professional curiosity. "I'll need to monitor you closely over the coming weeks." Adelaide stood to leave once the doctor had gone, but Liam blocked her path. Not aggressively, just firmly present. "You're not going anywhere tonight. Or tomorrow. Not until we figure this out." Adelaide's pride flared. "I won't be your charity case. I won't be anyone's burden." Liam's expression shifted, something raw flickering across his features. "This isn't charity. This is..." He paused, searching for words. "This is what's right." The memory crashed over them both simultaneously, though neither spoke it aloud. The entrepreneurship conference in New York, 10 months ago. Adelaide had been presenting her design portfolio at a startup showcase, her scholarship project earning praise from investors. Liam had been there as a keynote speaker, but technical difficulties had threatened his presentation. Adelaide had stayed after hours, helped him restructure his slides, her design expertise saving what could have been a disaster. They'd gone for drinks afterward, just to decompress, he'd said. But in that quiet bar, something had shifted. Liam had talked about losing his mother young, about building an empire on the foundation of loneliness. Adelaide had shared her dreams of creating sustainable design, of proving herself worthy of the scholarship that was her only escape from Constance's shadow. They'd connected over ambition and loss, two souls recognizing something essential in each other. The hotel room had been his, expensive and impersonal, until they'd made it theirs for one night. Every touch had been consensual, every moment treasured. They'd moved together like they'd known each other for years, not hours. But morning had brought reality. An emergency call had pulled Liam away to handle a crisis in Hong Kong. His assistant had sent Adelaide a clinical email canceling their planned breakfast, making it clear that Liam Sterling didn't do relationships. Adelaide had discovered her pregnancy 6 weeks later. She'd tried calling once, but the wall of assistance and protocols had been impenetrable. Pride had won over desperation. She wouldn't be another woman claiming the billionaire's baby. She wouldn't subject herself or her child to accusations of gold digging. She would handle this alone, as she'd handled everything since her mother's death. Standing in Liam's penthouse now, Adelaide watched him pace by the windows. "I need to ask you something," he said finally. "And I need the truth. Is there any possibility—" He stopped, ran a hand through his rain-dampened hair. "The timing. Your pregnancy. Is there any chance that we—" Adelaide's silence was answer enough. Liam's face went through a series of expressions: shock, calculation, something that might have been hope. "Why didn't you tell me?" His voice was controlled, but barely. "Would you have believed me?" Adelaide countered. The CEO of Sterling Dynamics getting a call from a scholarship student claiming to carry his child. How would that have played out? Serena's second call interrupted them. "It's escalating. The board wants a statement." The speculation is getting wild. Liam looked at Adelaide, decision crystallizing in his expression. "We need to control this narrative. But first, we need the truth. All of it." The next morning brought lawyers and medical professionals. William Harris, Liam's corporate attorney, laid out options with clinical precision. "We can arrange for a non-invasive prenatal paternity test. It's completely safe for the baby. Just a blood draw from you both. Results in 7 to 10 days. Adelaide's hand went to her belly protectively. "And if I refuse, then I'll provide for you anyway," Liam said quietly, surprising everyone, including himself. "But I need to know. Not for legal reasons. I need to know if—" He stopped, started again. "I need to know if I'm going to be a father." Helen advocated for the test. "It's genuinely safe. And given the media attention, establishing paternity might protect you both legally." Adelaide finally nodded. The blood draw was quick, clinical, but Liam's hand found hers during the procedure, squeezed gently when she winced. Neither of them acknowledged the gesture. But Dante noticed, filing it away with the observational skills that made him excellent at his job. The waiting period stretched like pulled taffy. Adelaide remained in the penthouse, not quite prisoner, not quite guest. They developed an unexpected routine. Liam would cook breakfast before his morning meetings, leaving notes about which foods were good for pregnancy. Adelaide would sketch designs at the massive dining table, her portfolio spreading across the surface. Evenings brought carefully casual conversations, both of them dancing around the results that would change everything. On the 5th day, Adelaide found Liam in his home office at 2 in the morning, studying parenting books. The sight was so incongruous, the powerful CEO reading about diaper changes and feeding schedules, that she almost laughed. "Preparing for all possibilities?" she asked. He looked up, unguarded in his exhaustion. "My father left when I was 2. I never knew what having a dad meant. If this baby is mine, I need to do better." The results came on day 7. Helen delivered them personally, her expression carefully neutral. "Probability of paternity is 99.99%. Congratulations, Mr. Sterling. You're going to be a father." The words hung in the air like a new world being born. Liam's hand found the back of a chair, gripped it for support. Adelaide watched his face transform, walls crumbling, vulnerability and joy and terror, all at once. "We need to talk about Constance," Adelaide said that evening. They'd moved past the shock into practical planning. "She won't let this go. The inheritance. My mother's estate that she's been trying to claim. She'll use this against us." Liam's expression hardened. "Let her try. I have resources she can't imagine." But Constance Bridges had resources of her own, particularly in manipulation and media contacts. While Adelaide and Liam navigated their new reality, Constance met with her personal attorney in a downtown office that reeked of old money and older secrets. The girl's pregnancy changes nothing, she insisted, though her perfectly maintained composure showed cracks. Henry's will leaves everything to me as his wife. Adelaide forfeited her rights when she brought shame to the family. The lawyer, a man who'd built his career on the misfortunes of wealthy families, studied the documents. There's a problem. Her mother's will, the original one, established a trust that passes directly to Adelaide on her 25th birthday or upon the birth of her first child, whichever comes first. You can't touch that money, Mrs. Bridges. Constance's face went white, then red. Find a way around it. I don't care what it takes. She slid a check across the desk, the number enough to buy silence and creativity. And while you're at it, I want everything you can find on Liam Sterling. Every scandal, every buried secret. Everyone has something to hide. The photographer Constance hired was good at his job, which primarily involved lurking in shadows and capturing moments that could be twisted into scandal. He caught Adelaide at her prenatal appointment, Liam's hand on her lower back as they walked. The images themselves were innocent, but with the right headlines, they could become weapons. CEO's secret baby mama and gold digger target's billionaire were just the beginning, but it was the orchestrated accident that crossed the line from manipulation to attempted murder. Adelaide had insisted on maintaining some independence, attending her university classes despite Liam's protests. The SUV that forced her car toward the median wasn't random. The scattered nails that punctured her tire weren't construction debris. Dante's quick reflexes saved her life, swerving at the last second to avoid a concrete barrier. In the hospital, Adelaide clutched Liam's hand while Helen ran test after test. The baby's fine, she finally announced, and both parents, they were parents now, whether they'd planned it or not, sagged with relief. But Liam's expression had turned to stone. This wasn't an accident, he said quietly. Dante nodded, already pulling traffic camera footage on his tablet. The evidence trail led back to Constance like breadcrumbs in a fairy tale. The SUV driver had been paid through a shell company that traced back to her personal assistant. The man who'd scattered the nails had been photographed outside the Carter mansion just days before. William built the case with methodical precision, while Serena managed the media storm with strategic brilliance. We don't hide, Serena advised. We control the narrative. A press conference, brief and dignified. Focus on the safety of a pregnant woman and her child. Make Constance the villain, without naming her directly. The strategy worked. Public opinion shifted overnight, from salacious gossip to protective outrage. The story became about a vulnerable woman targeted for her pregnancy, a CEO stepping up to protect her, and shadowy forces trying to cause harm. The legal proceedings moved faster than anyone expected. The attempted assault charge, coupled with evidence of financial fraud in how Constance had been managing Henry's estate, created a perfect storm. In the courtroom, Constance maintained her composure until Henry himself took the stand. Adelaide's father looked frail but determined as he faced his wife. "I've been a coward," he said, his voice stronger than it had been in months. "I let you convince me to abandon my daughter when she needed me most. I signed documents I didn't read, but no more." He produced a folder from his jacket, hands shaking, but resolved. "My late wife's original will. Constance tried to destroy it, but I kept a copy. Everything of Louisa's goes to Adelaide." Constance's carefully constructed world shattered. The judge's restraining order was immediate and comprehensive. Criminal charges would follow. As court security escorted her out, she turned to Adelaide with pure venom in her eyes. "This isn't over," she hissed. But it was. The woman who'd built her life on manipulation and lies had finally met consequences she couldn't charm away. The labor came early, stress-induced, Helen said, though she assured them the baby was full-term enough to be safe. Liam drove through the city like a man possessed, while Adelaide breathed through contractions. "You're not doing this alone," he kept repeating. Like a mantra. Like a promise. Astrid met them at the hospital. Adelaide's college roommate, and only real friend, who'd stood by her through everything. The delivery room became their whole world for 14 hours. Liam never left Adelaide's side, breathing with her, holding her hand through the worst of it, whispering encouragements when she thought she couldn't continue. "You're the strongest person I know," he said as she pushed. "Our daughter is lucky to have you." The word "our" gave her strength she didn't know she had left. The baby arrived at dawn, screaming and perfect. 6 pounds, 4 ounces of pure potential. As the nurse placed her on Adelaide's chest, skin to skin, the world shifted into place. Liam's tears fell freely as he touched his daughter's tiny fingers, watched them curl around his thumb with surprising strength. "She's perfect," he whispered, "just like her mother." Later, while Adelaide slept and the baby dozed in her bassinet, Liam signed papers in the hospital administrator's office. The Louisa Carter Foundation for Young Mothers would provide full scholarships and support for pregnant students and single mothers pursuing their education. He named Adelaide as co-director, though he hadn't told her yet. It wasn't charity or guilt. It was love, expressed in the language he knew best, creating something lasting and meaningful. Adelaide found the documents the next morning, left on the bedside table while Liam was getting coffee. She read through tears, understanding what he was saying without words. When he returned, she pulled him down for a kiss that tasted like new beginnings. "Thank you," she whispered, "for seeing me, for choosing us." Henry's visit came that afternoon. He entered tentatively, as if unsure of his welcome. Adelaide watched her father hold his granddaughter with shaking hands, saw the regret and love warring in his expression. "I failed you," he said simply. "Your mother would be ashamed of me." Adelaide reached for his hand. "Mom would want us to move forward, to be better. But Dad, there have to be boundaries. Constance can't be part of our lives." "The divorce papers are already filed," Henry said quietly. "I should have done it months ago, years ago, but I was weak and lonely, and she seemed to fill the void your mother left." He looked at his granddaughter, sleeping peacefully despite the chaos she'd been born into. "I want to be a better grandfather than I was a father. If you'll let me." The morning of discharge brought unexpected visitors. The entire board of Sterling Dynamics had sent flowers and congratulations. Serena had orchestrated a media response that painted Liam as a family man. The company's stock had actually risen, and public opinion had never been higher. "Turns out, people love a CEO who steps up," she said, with satisfaction. Who knew responsibility could be good PR? But it was the quiet moment on the hospital's garden terrace that changed everything. Liam found Adelaide there, holding their daughter while watching the sunrise. He dropped to one knee without preamble, pulling out a simple solitaire ring. Nothing ostentatious, just elegant and real. "I know we did this backwards," he said. "Baby first, dating never, straight to chaos. But Adelaide Carter, you've made me want to be better than I ever thought I could be. Will you marry me? Not because of the baby, not because of the media, but because I can't imagine any future without you both in it." Adelaide looked at him, this man who'd saved her in the rain, who'd stood by her through accusations and accidents, who'd held her hand through labor and cried at their daughter's first breath. "Yes," she said simply. "Yes, to all of it. To you. To us. To whatever comes next." 6 months later, the wedding was small but perfect. The garden venue bloomed with Adelaide's favorite flowers, her design aesthetic evident in every detail. Henry walked her down the aisle, His health improved now that Constance's toxic influence was gone. Astrid stood as maid of honor, holding the baby who gurgled happily in her christening dress. William and Serena served as witnesses. Dante managed security with his usual efficiency. And Helen beamed from the front row, like a proud aunt. Liam's vows were simple but profound. You taught me that strength isn't about never falling. It's about getting up, even when the whole world tries to keep you down. You and our daughter have given me a reason to be better, to build something more than profit margins and market shares. I promise to protect you both, to support your dreams as fiercely as you've supported mine, and to never let you stand in the rain alone again. Adelaide's response came through tears and laughter. You saw me at my lowest moment and offered shelter without conditions. You believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. You gave our daughter a father who shows up, who stays, who loves without reservation. I promise to build a life with you that honors both our pasts while creating a future our daughter can be proud of. The reception was filled with joy and possibility. The Louisa Carter Foundation had already funded 12 women through school. Sterling Dynamics had implemented revolutionary family leave policies. Adelaide's design firm, launched with her mother's reclaimed inheritance, was thriving. They'd built something from nothing, created beauty from ashes. As the evening wound down, Liam and Adelaide stood on the terrace, their daughter sleeping peacefully in Liam's arms. The city sparkled below them, full of promise and challenges yet to come. No more standing in the rain, Liam murmured against Adelaide's hair. From now on, we weather every storm together. Adelaide leaned into his warmth, her family complete at last. The girl who'd been kicked out for bringing shame had become a woman who'd redefined what family meant. The CEO who'd saved her had discovered that real power came not from boardrooms, but from being present for the people who mattered most. Their daughter would grow up knowing that love wasn't just a word but an action, repeated daily, chosen constantly, proven through every challenge. The penthouse that had once felt cold and sterile had transformed into a home. Toys scattered across Italian marble. Finger paintings decorated the refrigerator worth more than most cars. The guest room had become a nursery, then a toddler's room, would someday be a teenager's sanctuary. The walls that had once echoed with loneliness now rang with laughter and occasional tears, with bedtime stories and morning songs. Constance Bridges served 6 months in minimum security for the attempted assault, her reputation destroyed, her social standing evaporated. She emerged to find her world had moved on without her. The society pages she'd once dominated now featured Adelaide Sterling at charity galas, using her platform to advocate for single mothers and displaced young women. The inheritance she'd schemed to steal had been used to build something she could never understand: a legacy of compassion. Henry Carter rebuilt his relationship with his daughter, slowly, carefully. Weekend dinners became tradition. He taught his granddaughter to play chess, told her stories about her grandmother Louisa, helped Adelaide recover family photos Constance had hidden. His health improved with purpose, with having something to live for beyond his own regrets. The company thrived under Liam's evolved leadership. He'd learned that strength could coexist with vulnerability, that showing up for school plays mattered as much as board meetings. The man who'd once lived for quarterly reports now measured success in first steps and first words, in Adelaide's smile when he came home early, in their daughter's squeals of delight when he pushed her on the swings. Adelaide's design firm specialized in sustainable, accessible spaces for families in transition, shelters that felt like homes, community centers that fostered dignity alongside assistance. Every project carried her mother's spirit and her own journey from rejection to redemption. The girl who'd been deemed shameful had become a woman who helped others find their way through shame to hope. Their second child came 3 years later, a boy who looked like Liam but had Adelaide's gentle spirit. The pregnancy was planned this time, celebrated from the first moment. No hiding, no shame, no standing in the rain. Just joy and anticipation and the security of knowing they'd face whatever came together. The Sterling family portrait that would eventually hang in their home showed four people who'd chosen each other despite everything. Not a traditional beginning, not a fairy tale, but something better, something real. A CEO who'd learned that saving someone meant being saved in return. A young woman who discovered that accepting help wasn't weakness but wisdom. And children who would grow up, knowing that family wasn't about blood or law or tradition, but about showing up, staying present, and choosing love especially when it was hard. Adelaide often thought about that night in the rain, how close she'd come to losing everything, how a moment of kindness from an unexpected source had changed the trajectory of multiple lives. She'd teach her children that sometimes angels came in the form of CEOs in black sedans, that sometimes being saved meant having the courage to accept salvation, and that sometimes the very thing that seemed like an ending was actually the beginning of everything that mattered. The penthouse's windows still looked out over the city, but now they saw it differently. Not as a cold expanse of strangers and stone, but as a community full of stories like theirs. People facing their worst moments. People needing someone to stop, to open a door, to say get in when the rain was falling hardest. The Sterlings had become quiet philanthropists, funding shelters and programs, creating opportunities for others to find their way from desperation to hope. In the end, it wasn't about the money, or the media, or even the dramatic confrontations that had marked their beginning. It was about the quiet moments. Adelaide sketching while Liam reviewed contracts, their children playing at their feet. Sunday mornings that started late and lingered over pancakes. Birthday parties with too much cake and perfect chaos. The simple, profound act of building a life together from the ruins of what had come before. The girl who'd been kicked out by her stepmother had become a force of nature in her own right. The CEO who'd saved her had discovered that real salvation was mutual, that in reaching out to help another, he'd finally found his own way home. Together, they'd written a story that transcended its dramatic beginning to become something beautifully, impossibly ordinary. A family, a future, a love that had weathered the storm and emerged stronger for having been tested by rain.